Hi, it's Alan. This video is about the topic of looking for a place to live as a trans person, because I've had to do that recently. I've spent the last, I guess, 3 weeks or so looking for a place to live. Now I would not choose this point in time to do it if I could choose, because I have not legally changed my name or my gender marker yet. I have just barely started that process, because, I'm in the beginning of my transition. So that's tough, like presenting as male and then having your legal name, like on credit checks and stuff, be a female name. But I have to do it now because I am separating from my wife, so I have to find a place to live. And I did find a place just the other day. I got offered a really nice studio apartment that's extremely close to my work, which I'm so happy about. Because, I live in a big, sprawling suburban area, and it can be hard to find a place to live that's right where you want it. So anyway, my experience and tips. Okay, so now, I should say, for starters, that I live in California, kind of close to the coast of California, which tends to be a pretty liberal area. Obviously, not every person is liberal and open-minded, I'll tell you that, but probably have better chances of that than in other parts of the country, so I'm thankful for that. So, my experience and my tips may not totally apply if you live, in Alabama or something. So anyway, here's my process. I just started doing the normal process, I looked online on Craigslist for housing, and, I emailed people, I emailed listings if I thought it looked good, and in my emails, I just called myself Alan, because obviously that's what I want to be called, and, I didn't say anything in my emails or my initial phone calls about being trans. I didn't say in those initial communications that my legal first name was different than my preferred first name. I was just like, I'm Alan, here's my profession, here's my basic information, can I come see the place? And that worked fine. A lot of people wanted me to come see the place, so that was good. And so the first place that I saw was a studio attached to a house owned by a woman who was just sort of a nice, normal woman in her 40s. I liked her. And, so when I first went to see the place, she had me fill out an application. And since the application involves information that she would use for a credit check or something, I had to put my legal first name, Allison. So what I did then was, as I was filling out the application, I was like, oh, so by the way, my legal first name is Allison, which is different from my preferred first name because I'm transgender and I'm in the process of changing my first name. So that's all I said, and she was like, oh, okay. And then I tried to keep talking to sort of defuse the situation, and I was like, so yeah, that's why I look so young, because she had commented earlier that I look really young. And, so we talked about age and stuff, and I tried to make a joke, like, oh yeah, when I was out at a restaurant with my younger brother and his girlfriend, who's 10 years younger than I am, I was the only one who got carded when we got drinks. Ha ha ha. So that went fine, and then afterwards I emailed her to thank her for showing me the place, and I told her I was still interested, and I said, by the way, a lot of people think that being transgender is weird and it's a big deal, but it's really not that big a deal, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about it. And she emailed me back. She was really nice. She was like, yeah, no, don't worry about that, it's no problem at all. One time when I was previously renting out the place, one of the people who came by to see it was as she put it, a woman who was born a man, and I liked her, and we're still in touch. So, you know, that was cool. That was reassuring. She didn't end up choosing me to live there. I don't know. I mean, my guess is that maybe she wanted, like, a woman to live there. Maybe somebody who was more like her so she could be friends with them. I have no idea. But maybe. So, after that, then I was like, should I actually do that again? Like, tell people that I'm transgendered? Or should I have a different approach when I see other places? And I talked to some friends about it, and one of my friends, who is a butch woman, was like, well, you know, maybe you'd have better luck if you tried presenting as female when you go to meet the landlords, and then after you move in, tell them, oh, well, now I prefer to be called Alan, and by the way, I might look different as time goes on because I'm transitioning. And I thought about that. I was like, well, maybe I could present as female if I try to talk with a kind of higher voice, which I think makes me seem really awkward and weird. And my friend was like, yeah, if you wear something a little different, maybe. It's like, well, what do I have to wear that's different? I don't have any women's clothes, and even if I did, that would be traumatizing to wear them. So that really gave me a very uncomfortable feeling, thinking about presenting as female when I go view places. And it's like, I mean, wouldn't that seem weird anyway? If I looked like this and I meet somebody and I'm like, hi, I'm Allison, I'm female. Like, is that really less weird for non-open-minded people than saying that I'm trans? But I did think about it, and then I talked to the guys in my FTM, like, support and social group, and the consensus there was like, no, we don't think you should present as female, because first of all, that probably wouldn't work. You just had top surgery, your voice is pretty low, you pass all the time, so maybe it wouldn't work to present as female, and why betray yourself like that? Going back to something that's so uncomfortable and not true to myself. So then hearing that from them, I was like, well, yeah, that would be kind of more uncomfortable than I would be willing to do. And also, yeah, I don't think that would really work at this point in my transition. Because I pass all the time. So, what am I gonna, like, do the thing that an MTF trans woman would do? Like, try to talk in a higher voice? And, like, obviously I'm going in the opposite direction than that. I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm not saying anything about trans women. They should present as women if that's what they want to do. I'm just saying, for me, I would not want to do that in the same way that a trans woman would really not want to try to present as male. So there you go. So then, the guys in my group also suggested that I don't really necessarily have to tell them that I'm trans. I could just say, oh, you'll notice that my legal first name is different than my preferred first name, and I'm just starting the process of legally changing my first name to something more suitable, something that I like better, but I have not yet finished the process, although I will in the next couple months. So I thought, well, that makes sense, because maybe they'd think that I'm just like a normal guy, like a cisgender guy who was given sort of an unfortunate name by his parents at birth. You know, like, there are cisgender guys born as boys who are named, like, Leslie, or what's another one? Lindsay? I think that's sort of a British thing, but, so, I mean, Allison, it's kind of it can be a last name, you know, like the poet Dorothy Allison. It can be a last name, so one could view the name Allison as like a last name, like Madison. Madison is a last name, but there are girls named Madison, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but whatever. So that's the approach that I used for the other places that I went to. when I gave them the application, I just either told them or wrote a little note that said what I just said, you know. My legal first name is different, but I'm in the process of changing it. But for now, that's what it is. And no one had a weird reaction. No one asked me about it. And I can't tell if they thought that I was trans or if they just thought that I was a boy named Allison. um, like, they treated me like a guy even after that. Like, the landlord, who was a man at the place that I'm actually going to be living at, that, like, he picked me to live there out of a bunch of other people, like, he had already learned this about my name, and then he was just chatting with me, and he's like, yeah, you know, I think that my wife might like that woman to live here, because blah, 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 but, you know, I'm gonna tell her, you know, guys don't complain much. I guess he meant guys don't keep asking you for maintenance, or, I don't know. He was like, yeah, I mean, you seem like a cool guy. Guys don't complain much. You know, they're simple, easygoing, so he was implying that he would sort of vote for me to live there. So that was kind of funny and interesting. And, so yeah, so that's how it went in terms of my name. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I have a recommendation, but for my personal preference, that's the method that I ended up preferring. Just to not say anything about being trans, present as I want to present, tell them my legal first name is different. So just other interesting experiences that could maybe be helpful for people to hear about, or that are at least amusing. Okay, so, for one thing, well, most of the landlords that I talked to were men. Only that one that I previously mentioned was a woman. And they did seem to like me. Like, I felt like they were a little more chatty or positive towards me than I have been used to being treated by men. And that felt good. It felt very validating. And they said some things that I think men would not have said to me before transition. Nothing dramatic, but just tiny things. Like, one guy, oh man, I met this one landlord who was really a talker. One of those guys that just rambles on, off on a ton of different tangents, like forever. He was very nice, though, very sweet. But he was talking about a surgery he'd had, and he talked about how he saw some, like, TV show or something about how a guy got his finger chopped off accidentally, and the doctor put some powder on the stub of the finger that was made from, like, salamanders or something like that, because salamanders can grow a limb back or grow their tail back if it comes off. And then the guy's finger grew back with a fingernail and everything. Now, I don't know if that's true, but he was like, yeah, that stuff is so amazing. I mean, where does it stop? I mean, can somebody grow a whole leg back? I mean, who knows what you can do with that? Like, you don't need Viagra anymore. Like, nobody would need Viagra anymore, right? And he was laughing, and I was like, yeah, seriously. And in my mind, I was like, that would be pretty cool for trans men if that could work. But anyway, maybe he would say that to a woman, I don't know. But it was just kind of a funny little guy moment. And then he was also talking about a previous tenant who he wasn't too happy with because he heard the water going through the pipes and could tell that she was taking, like, 20-minute showers. And, you know, in this area, it's important to conserve water. So I was like, well, I grew up in a drought. I always try to conserve water. Like, I definitely don't take 20-minute showers. And he was like, oh, yeah, you know, like, you know. And then some comment that essentially meant, like, oh, yeah, it's women who do stuff like that. So that's pretty funny. I had a lot of moments along those lines with the landlords. Um, and I was talking to another friend who raised the issue of, like, is a young guy, or a young appearing guy, a guy who appears young, like myself, at a disadvantage for finding housing? Like, if people think I'm gonna, like, wreck stuff. But my observations are just that it depends on who the landlord is. Because, I don't know, maybe some people of any gender, maybe women more so, would want a female tenant. Because, you know, the stereotype is that women are cleaner and gentler on the house and all that. But then maybe other landlords, maybe particularly men, would be happy to have a guy tenant for the reasons that they mentioned to me, which is that they think guys complain less, guys ask for less, they make fewer demands, they're okay with a simpler, less fancy apartment. They take shorter showers, I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know that there's really any advantage or disadvantage about your gender looking for housing. So, that's kind of all I can think of. So, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to try to give my response. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.